Afghanistan and President Karzai. It takes particular audacity for President Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan to order Parliament to delay its opening session while an unconstitutional court he appointed re-investigates charges of fraud in last fall's parliamentary vote. Mr. Karzai's own re-election 2 years ago was marred by blatant ballot tampering, and his legitimacy in the eyes of his own people in the world hasn't recovered. Beyond that hypocrisy, this sort of cynical meddling is exactly what Afghanistan doesn't need at this critical moment in the NATO-backed struggle to win hearts, minds, and territory from the Taliban. American-led military forces have reportedly made some progress loosening the Taliban's grip on the southern province of Kandahar, but those hard-won gains could quickly unravel unless Afghans start seeing their government as legitimate and competent. Mr. Karzai's seemingly unlimited tolerance for corrupt relatives and cronies and his inability to deliver basic services are already two of the insurgents' biggest recruiting points. Another blatant power grab will make things even worse. Much worse. Kandahar is the heartland of Mr. Karzai's Pashtun ethnic group, which ended up with far fewer seats in the new parliament than it held in the last one. The threat of violence, but also discontent with Mr. Karzai, led to a low turnout, and disqualifications for fraud further reduced the number of Pashtun seats. So, Mr. Karzai's delay of parliament seems intended, at a minimum, to tamp down Pashtun discontent during the Kandahar offensive. What it surely will do is exacerbate tensions across Afghanistan, especially in the non-Pashtun areas where Taliban activity is rising. Afghanistan needs an accountable government, and one in which all groups and regions are fairly represented. The longer Parliament is kept from convening, it is already 5 months since the election, the longer Mr. Karzai gets to rule by decree. So, some might call him King Karzai. The Parliament should be seated without any more delay so that it can get to work on serious problems, pressing for more effective governance and reining in Mr. Karzai's increasingly arbitrary and capricious actions. Last September's vote was indeed tainted by wholesale irregularities. No one disputes that or argues that voter fraud should simply be overlooked, as it was in Mr. Karzai's own re-election race. These returns have already been investigated by the only legal body constitutionally empowered to do so, Afghanistan's Independent Election Commission, and those findings have been fully backed by the international community. Mr. Karzai's court has no legal standing and should not be allowed to have the last word. So, members of the new parliament are saying they will meet in another location if Mr. Karzai tries to prevent them from using the parliament building. Their determination, coupled with strong pressure from the United States, NATO, and Washington, might possibly persuade Mr. Karzai to back off. Defeating the Taliban requires an effective Afghan partner, and, for better or for worse, and too often it is the latter, Mr. Karzai is the president of Afghanistan. Washington has to work with him, somehow, and that requires standing up to him in order to remove him and Afghanistan from the consequences of his anti-democratic impulses. President Obama must make it clear to Mr. Karzai, publicly and privately, that he is not an uncrowned king, but a president accountable to his people and his country's constitution. In other words, Afghanistan is still just as corrupt as ever, or so it seems. How can you win a war like that? And they don't call it the graveyard of empires for nothing. Yes, the Afghanistan war is also a sign of the times. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 3. Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. 4. And mine eye shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. 5. Thus saith the Lord God, an evil, and only evil, behold, is come. 6. An end is come, the end is come, it watches for thee, behold, it is come. 7. The morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the earth. The time is come, the day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains. 8. Now will I shortly pour out my fury upon thee, and accomplish mine anger upon thee, and I will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense thee for all thine abominations. 9. And mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. I will recompense thee according to thy ways, and thine abominations that are in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord that smites. 10. Behold the day, behold, it is come, the morning is gone forth, the rod has blossomed, pride has budded. 11. Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness, none of them shall remain, nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs, neither shall there be wailing for them. 12. The time is come, the day draws near, let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. 13. For the seller shall not return to that which is sold, although they were yet alive, for the vision is touching the whole multitude thereof, which shall not return, neither shall any strengthen himself in the iniquity of his life. 14. They have blown the trumpet and sounded the warning, even to make all ready, but none goes to the battle, for my wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. 15. The weapon is without, and the pestilence and famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword or the weapon, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. 16. But they that escape of them shall escape, and shall be on the mountains, like doves of the valleys, all of them mourning, every one for his iniquity. 17. All hands shall be feeble, and all knees shall be weak as water. 18. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads. 19. They shall cast their silver and money in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver, their money, and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of their Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. Luke chapter 21, verse 34. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with partying and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. 35. For as a snare shall come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. 36. Watch ye therefore, and always pray, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that are coming to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Revelation chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. 9. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And yes, it's time for all prophecy to be fulfilled. And there are many different kinds of signs happening day by day all around the world.